Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a whole stack of sources, pull out the really key bits, and basically get you up to speed on something fascinating fast. Today we're digging into a story that's, it's as old as human friendship itself, really. The journey of dogs. Our oldest companions, right? But what if their trek, across the Americas? What if that story is way more complex, even surprising than you thought? So our focus is this really groundbreaking new study. It's led by Dr. Aurélie Manin from Oxford. And they used ancient DNA, which is amazing in itself, to trace the path of dogs through the Americas. Our mission here is to unpack that study, the paper, and some related stuff. We want to show you how dogs spread south, the timeline, which is pretty unexpected, and what it all tells us about, human migration, early farming, and there's even a cool genetic secret about a dog breed you definitely know. So yeah, it's your shortcut to being really informed on this deep connection to our past. Okay, so let's set the scene a bit to unravel this ancient mystery.
You might actually be surprised that before Europeans showed up, dogs were literally the only domestic animal brought into the Americas from Eurasia. They were real pioneers, coming over with people into North America maybe 15, even 16,000 years ago.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is that, humans, especially hunter-gatherer groups, they spread south really fast, right? Like down to the tip of South America by 14,000 years ago. Super quick. But when the dogs got to Central and South America, well, that's always been a bit murky, even debated quite a bit. It definitely wasn't as simple as the human journey.
Right. So humans race ahead, but the dogs maybe lag behind. How did they figure this out? They used genetics, you said.
Exactly. Genetic forensics, basically.
Yeah.
They looked at the DNA itself.
And what did that DNA tell them about this whole southward movement?
Well, it showed something pretty striking. The researchers, they sequenced 70 complete mitochondrial genomes.
Mitochondrial DNA. That's the stuff passed down just through the mother.
Precisely. So it's fantastic for tracing female lines way back. And they got these samples from archaeological sites, ancient dog bones, but also some modern dogs, all the way from central Mexico down to Chile and Argentina. And analyzing those revealed this really crucial detail.
Okay, I'm hooked. What was the detail?
It turns out that all the pre-contact dogs they looked at in Central and South America came from just one single maternal lineage.
One.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all those dogs across that huge area.
Just one. Specifically, it's called the A2B1A clade. Think of a clade as like a distinct branch on the family tree. And this specific branch, A2B1A, it split off from the North American dogs after dogs had already arrived on the continent. And get this, it was only found in those Mesoamerican and South American dogs. Nowhere else in their samples.
Wow. Okay, so not like multiple groups of dogs wandering down independently. It suggests, like a single unified population moving south?
Exactly. That's the strong implication. It points towards a genetically, pretty homogeneous group making that journey southwards.
Almost like a genetic bottleneck, but for a whole continent's worth of dogs heading south. That makes sense. Okay, but here's where you said it gets really interesting. You think, okay, humans move, dogs move with them. Maybe a bit slower, but still moving. But this study says it was much slower. Something called isolation by distance. What's that about?
Yeah, that's the real surprise, because it kind of challenges what you might assume. Isolation by distance basically means that the further apart dog populations got from each other geographically as they spread, the more genetically different they became. It indicates a slow, gradual spread, almost like they were hopping from place to place, rather than one big, fast migration sweeping south. And this slow movement, this adaptation to new places, seems to have happened mostly between about 7,000 and 5,000 years ago.
7,000 to 5,000 years ago.
Okay.
Why is that timing so important?
Because it lines up almost perfectly with the spread of maize corn cultivation by early farming communities moving south.
Okay, so it wasn't the initial hunter-gatherers sprinting south. The dog's big move came later with the farmers.
That seems to be the picture, yeah. It really changes how we think about it.
So what is this connection, dogs and farming spreading together? What does that really tell us about human history down there?
Well, it really strengthens this idea that early farming societies played a huge role in how dogs spread around the world, not just in the Americas. It strongly suggests that the dog dispersal into South America wasn't tied to that first fast wave of people, the hunter-gatherers, but instead it was linked pretty closely to the expansion of agriculture.
Is there specific archaeological evidence for that timing, like actual dog bones?
Yes, absolutely. The earliest widely accepted dog remains we have from places like central Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, they date to around 5,200 to 5,000 years before present. So if you look at the timeline, First humans in South America way back around 15,000 years ago. Dogs show up much later, concentrated around 7,000 to 5,000 years ago.
That later date range really puts them after the initial peopling, doesn't it?
It does. It largely postdates that first arrival, but it coincides very neatly with when we think maize farming started spreading from Mexico down into South America around 7,000 years ago. And there's another piece, human genetics. There's a specific Y chromosome marker in humans passed down the male line called Q1A3A. Its expansion in Mexico, the northern Amazon, the Andes. That's also dated to that same window, 7,000 to 5,000 years ago. And it's been linked to the spread of farming.
Wow. So you have the dog DNA, the archaeological dog bones, the maize dates, and human DNA all pointing to that same time frame and connection to farming. That's pretty convincing.
It paints a very consistent picture, yeah.
But it still leaves that question. Why the delay? If dogs were with humans in North America for thousands of years already, why didn't they just trot south with the first people? What held them back?
That's a really good question, and the study discusses some possibilities. One idea is maybe for those early hunter-gatherers moving rapidly into totally new environments, dogs just weren't as useful, or maybe harder to feed and manage on the move.
Fewer advantages, maybe.
Perhaps fewer subsistence advantages, yeah. Or maybe the new environments themselves were tough for the dogs. Think about tropical areas. New diseases, different parasites, new predators, maybe.
Yeah, adapting to the tropics wouldn't have been easy. It wasn't just a walk in the park.
Definitely not. So it could be a combination of factors that meant dogs only really spread widely once people settled down more with agriculture. And there's more genetic detail, too. The study found what they call significant genetic structuring. Basically, dogs in one region were quite distinct genetically from dogs in another region.
Meaning they weren't mixing much between regions.
Exactly. Most of the genetic variation was between the groups, not within them. This is just that female dogs, especially, weren't moving around a lot between different areas. It supports this stepping stone model. Like little groups move south, settled, maybe a few from that group move further south, settled again. Each step could create a kind of genetic bottleneck, reducing diversity as they moved along.
Okay, so a slow, farming-linked stepping stone journey south, resulting in distinct regional dog populations. Got it. Now, jump forward in time, Europeans arrive, big changes. What happened to these ancient American dog lineages?
Yeah, European contact was, well, it was a massive turning point for dogs, too. New dog breeds arrived, mainly from Europe. Genetically, they belong to different haplogroups, A, B, and C mostly. And these new European dogs largely replaced the original indigenous American dogs, their unique genetic signature, that A2B1A clade we talked about. It got diluted very, very quickly. Today, in most modern dogs across the Americas, that ancient signature is almost completely gone, swamped by European genes.
Almost completely gone, but not entirely. You mentioned a surprise exception, a sort of like living fossil.
Exactly. Despite that massive replacement event, there's an echo. Some modern Chihuahuas.
Chihuahuas. Seriously.
Seriously. Some of them still carry mitochondrial DNA directly descended from their pre-contact ancestors in Mesoamerica. That ancient lineage is still there.
No way. How do they know it's ancient and not just, recent mixing?
They traced it back. The genetic analysis estimates the time to the most recent common ancestor, basically, when the lineage found in modern Chihuahuas split from the closest related archaeological dog sample is about 1,520 years ago.
1,520 years. So well before Columbus. Well before European dogs arrived in large numbers.
Absolutely. It predates European arrival significantly. It's really strong evidence supporting the idea that the Chihuahua breed has genuinely ancient roots in the Americas, specifically Mesoamerica, a tiny living link to that whole pre-contact world.
That's incredible. Little dog with a huge history. Was there any, historical mention of them early on?
Well, the first clear written mention of the Chihuahua dog, specifically named that way, seems to be around 1862. It was related to importing this Mexican dog for a world exhibition in 1863, but the genetic story obviously goes back much, much further.
Okay, so recapping this whole deep dive, what we've learned from this ancient DNA is just how tied together the story of dogs and humans is, especially with that huge shift, from hunting and gathering to farming. It wasn't just dogs tagging along everywhere humans went instantly. Their big push south seems linked to agriculture, a slower, more deliberate spread. And it leaves us with this kind of amazing, rare genetic trace in the modern Chihuahua. So here's something for you to think about. This really intimate, evolving partnership between us and dogs, tied so closely to how we fundamentally changed the way we fed ourselves, moving from nomads to farmers.
What does that long intertwined history tell us about the nature of companionship itself? And maybe even about how civilizations develop, something to ponder.